Today was the culmination of 1,000 dreams and 3 years of unwavering love. She was driving toward a life she had meticulously built, her hand steady on the steering wheel of the vintage convertible Michael had restored with his own hands. The car was a masterpiece of chrome and midnight paint, reflecting the world as it sped by. Alicia felt the rustle of her wedding gown, a breathtaking creation of silk and intricate lace against her legs. It was a garment that felt like an armor of hope, designed for a day that was supposed to be flawless. She checked the dashboard clock. She was perfectly on time. In 40 minutes, she would be standing before the man who was her anchor, her best friend and her future. But the harmony of the afternoon was shattered by a sharp, staccato burst of a siren. Alicia's heart plummeted as red and blue lights danced in her rearview mirror. Confusion flickered in her mind. She hadn't been speeding and the car's registration was current. She eased the vehicle to the shoulder, the tires crunching on the gravel, as she watched the patrol car come to a stop behind her. A sense of unease rooted in a lifetime of navigating. A world that often looked at her with suspicion began to coil in her stomach. She took a deep breath, smoothing the fabric of her dress, reminding herself that she was a woman of substance, a successful entrepreneur, and soon the wife of one of the most respected men in the state. Officer Collins stepped out of his vehicle with a posture that radiated an immediate, unearned hostility. He was a man whose uniform seemed to give him a sense of power that his character lacked. He didn't approach the car with the professional neutrality expected of a public servant. Instead, he moved with a slow, predatory, deliberate pace. When he reached the driver's side window, his eyes didn't settle on Alicia's face. First, he raked over the expensive interior of the car, the high-end leather, and finally the elegant gown she wore. A sneer curled his lip, a micro-expression of contempt that Alicia caught instantly. "License and registration," Collins barked, his voice like a rusted blade. "Good afternoon, officer," Alicia replied, her voice a calm, practiced melody of diplomacy. "Is there a problem? I'm actually on my way to my wedding, so I'm a bit of a time constraint." Collins didn't offer a polite response. Instead, he leaned down, his face inches from hers, his breath smelling of stale coffee. "I don't care if you're on your way to the moon. This car was reported as suspicious. High-value vehicle driver doesn't match the profile. You understand what I'm saying?" "I don't," Alicia said, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. "The car belongs to my fiancé. All the paperwork is in the glove compartment. I am happy to provide it, but I assure you everything is legal. Just give me the damn papers." He snapped as Alicia reached for the glove box. Her movement was graceful. Collins reacted as if she were reaching for a weapon. He stepped back, his hand hovering over his holster, his face contorting in a mask of aggressive readiness. "Slowly, keep your hands where I can see them." Alicia froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The absurdity of the situation was starting to be eclipsed by a very real, very sharp fear. She retrieved the registration with trembling fingers and handed it over. Collins snatched it, barely glancing at the name Michael Evans printed on the document. In his mind, the narrative was already written. A black woman in an expensive car was a thief until proven otherwise, and even then he wasn't interested in proof. He was interested in the thrill of the hunt. "Michael Evans, huh?" Collins mocked. "And I suppose he just let you take his prized possession for a spin. Or did you take it while he was in the shower? We get calls about brides like you all the time, trying to make a getaway in stolen luxury." "Officer, that name on the paper, that is Chief Michael Evans. My fiancé, if you would just call the precinct." Collins let out a harsh, jagged laugh. "Chief Evans, you think I'm an idiot? The chief isn't marrying someone like you. You're coming with me. Step out of the car now." "I am not getting out of this car without a reason," Alicia stated, her voice trembling not with fear, but with a burgeoning righteous fury. "I have provided legal documentation. You are harassing me on my wedding day." Without another word, Collins reached through the open window, unlocked the door and held it open. He grabbed Alicia by the arm, his fingers digging into the delicate skin of her bicep. The force of his pull dragged her out of the seat, her magnificent gown catching on the doorframe. Alicia gasped as she felt the silk tear, a sound that felt like a scream in the quiet afternoon. She was forced against the side of the car, the hot metal pressing against her back. "You're resisting a lawful order," Collins hissed into her ear as he spun her around. He grabbed her wrists, pulling them behind her back with a brutality that made her wince. The handcuffs clicked into place, the cold metal biting into her skin. "Let's see how pretty that dress looks in a holding cell." Alicia's world narrowed to the sensation of the cuffs and the sight of the gravel beneath her feet. She felt a tear escape, but she refused to sob. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. He shoved her into the back of his patrol car, the plastic seat hard and unforgiving against her dress. As they drove toward the precinct, Alicia closed her eyes, praying that Michael would realize something was wrong. The precinct was a hive of activity when they arrived. Collins didn't lead her in quietly. He paraded her through the main hall, his chest puffed out, a triumphant smirk on his face. He wanted everyone to see his catch. Officers paused at their desks, their eyes widening as they saw a woman in a full wedding gown, handcuffed and disheveled, being LED'd by a smug Collins. "Got a live one, boys," Collins shouted, Grand Theft Auto. Resisting arrest and impersonating a relative of the chief. "She actually tried to tell me she's marrying Michael Evans." A heavy silence began to ripple through the room, starting from the back and moving forward like a cold front. The officers who knew Michael, who knew his car and who had seen the engagement photos he proudly displayed on his desk, suddenly looked as if they had seen a ghost Collins. One veteran sergeant started, his voice barely a whisper. "What have you done? I did my job." Sarge caught this thief red-handed in the chief's convertible. At that moment, the heavy oak doors of the chief's private office swung open. Michael emerged resplendent in his dress uniform, his medals gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He had been waiting for a call saying Alicia was nearby, but he hadn't expected to see her like this. Time seemed to liquefy. Michael's gaze moved from the handcuffs on Alicia's bruised wrist to the tear in her gown and finally to Collins's smug face. The air in the room became thick with an unbearable tension. Michael didn't scream, he didn't move fast. He walked toward them with a slow, rhythmic pace that was infinitely more terrifying than an outburst. Every step he took felt like a hammer blow to the floor. Collins, sensing a shift, but not yet understanding the magnitude of his mistake, stepped forward. "Chief, sir. I found your car. This woman was—" Michael didn't even look at him. He stopped inches from Alicia, his eyes filled with an agonizing mix of love and fury. He reached out, his hands trembling as he touched her cheek. "Alicia, my God, Alicia." The realization hit Collins like a physical impact. The smirk didn't just fade. It evaporated, leaving behind a mask of sheer, unadulterated terror. He looked at the woman he had bullied, then at the man who held his entire future in his hands. His knees began to shake visibly. The silence in the room was so profound that the sound of a dripping faucet in the break room felt like a drumbeat. Then a dark, spreading dampness appeared on the front of Collins' trousers. The tough officer, the man who had used his badge as a weapon of intimidation, had literally lost control of his bladder. The smell of urine filled the small space around him as he stood there, paralyzed by the enormity of his ruin. "Unlock her," Michael said. His voice was a low, guttural rasp that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Collins fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking so violently that he dropped them twice. The clatter of the keys on the linoleum floor was the only sound in the room. Finally, he managed to get the cuffs off. Alicia collapsed into Michael's arms, her strength finally giving way. Michael didn't wait for an explanation. He didn't need one. He looked at the sergeant, strip him of his badge, now escort him to a cell. "I want a full report on every stop he's made in the last 6 months, and call the district attorney. Tell them I have a civil rights violation for them to prosecute." Collins was LED away, sobbing and humiliated. His career and reputation dissolved in a single afternoon of prejudice. The precinct, once a place where he felt untouchable, was now his cage. Michael carried Alicia to his office, shutting out the world. He spent the next hour cleaning the dust from her gown, his touch as light as a feather. "I'm so sorry," he whispered over and over. "I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you." "Don't," Alicia said, standing tall once more. "We have a wedding to get to and we have a message to send." They arrived at the church 2 hours late. The guests were murmuring, but when the doors opened and Alicia walked down the aisle, the tear in her dress visible, her wrists still marked by the cuffs, a hush fell over the room. She didn't hide the damage, she wore it as a badge of survival. Michael stood at the altar, his eyes never leaving hers, a silent promise of protection and reform etched into his face. The ceremony wasn't just a union of two people. It was a testament to resilience. After the vows, Michael stood before the congregation. He spoke not just as a husband, but as the chief of police. He announced a total overhaul of the department's training protocols and a zero-tolerance policy for bias. He used his own wedding day to declare war on the shadows that had tried to swallow his bride. As for Collins, his punishment was absolute. The investigation revealed a pattern of behavior that led to a 10-year prison sentence. He became a cautionary tale in the academy. The man who lost everything because he couldn't see past his own hate. Alicia and Michael's marriage grew stronger with every passing year. They became icons of justice in their city, proving that even the darkest moments can be turned into a brilliant light if you have the courage to stand in the truth. The car was eventually repaired, the dress was preserved in its torn state, as a reminder of their strength, and they lived a life defined not by the arrest, but by the magnificent justice that followed.